All right, well, welcome everybody anyway. So this is the first BoK Club meeting. Tonight we're going to learn a little bit more about business integrated governance and how it came about. That's what David is here for. We've got all about the body of knowledge. So how did it evolve? What version are we on? How you can get at it. The BoK Club programme, what we're going to read, what we won't cover actually as part of our series. A little bit of a BoK preview. So what we're actually going to be looking at, other resources that BIG has, and the schedule. So as David is only with us very temporarily, we do have a few slides to support this, but David, perhaps just like to tell us a little bit more about, well, BIG and how it led to the evolution of the body of knowledge.
Yes, so it's a bit of a long story, so I'll try and keep it brief. So a number of years ago, I've been implementing portfolio program and project management solutions. And a lot of that involved creating reports and integrating data. And that integrating data and moving data around was really painful and difficult. So we worked with a particular client to create a data platform. So instead of sending information from this system to that system, we kind of gathered it and made it accessible to all and came up with a common data model for that client. So I thought, well, why don't I share this thinking and get that on the agenda for other people? And Martin Paver was another guy that was looking at data for projects. So I had a little poke around this whole idea of common data model. And I realized that when we were thinking about what data we need to pull together, that actually it didn't just need to think about the data. I need to think about primarily the purpose that it was being used for. And the primary purpose, I realized, was for governance, for decision making. So we stepped past the technical requirement to pull in information to think about what governance needed and what we needed to pull through into a data platform to allow us to work without having to send information all over the place. And the model broadened from beyond projects to product management to other business as usual work streams. And we started to think about the objectives, the strategy objectives that we had. And we suddenly realized that instead of coming up with an integrated data platform for projects and programs, we'd actually come up with a governance framework to connect strategy to delivery, which was one heck of an evolution. And that went through a process of engaging colleagues and friends, about 20 or 30, to brainstorm what that might look like. We eventually spent quite a bit of time writing that up into some documentation we shared online. We shared some content to Katie Angelis's strategic portfolio management book, and we got a lot of support and worked very closely with Adrian Dooley to create an extension to the Praxis website, which was focused on the portfolio program and project side of integrated governance. And the whole concept developed a lot from there. But after working with Adrian and wanting to spread the thinking into strategy into products, we then went our own way a little bit, from stepped aside from just the project connection, and really went to town putting together a couple of 100-page document called the Big Body of Knowledge, the Big Body of Knowledge version 2. Which took probably about 6 months to collate, with I think about 150 people in some shape or form that had contributed to it to that point. And we shared it live and in the public domain. I think it was about 2 years ago, not far away from the today itself. So that's it really. Portfolio program and project management, data collation, realizing that we couldn't just think about collecting data, we had to think about what it was used for. It was governance that it was used for, but governance, we couldn't just run projects and programs on their own. We had to integrate the governance with everyone else that needed to work in the organization. that connected to strategy. The framework became bigger and better. Lots more people got involved, and we produced something quite substantial in the end. So I don't know if that stream of consciousness makes any sense, but that's where it came from. Veronica, is that what you were after today?
Yes, I think so. Actually, Alex, you can skip forward. We've got a lovely diagram that I think summarises that quite nicely. Perhaps you could talk us through this a little bit more then, David.
Yeah, so the core P3M Data Club, this group of us that were interested in project and program data, that really started to come about at the back end of 2018. We really thought through the model and wrote that up, and actually worked with a technology provider to create some tech which would allow us to model the integration of data. But we needed to put some words beyond that, and that then matured into some proper input from Adrian Dooley, and we presented a component of that in the practice framework. We then started to work with some people from the product management community. So we looked to add a fourth P, he says with his smiley face on, to what this would consist of. And in the back end of 22 into 23, we started to collate a thought set which was much more than just projects and programs, which talked about why we want integrated governance, how we connect strategy to delivery, and which business units, which business entities we'd need to do that across, which wasn't just projects, but it would include business as usual and product creation work streams as well as projects and programs. So one of the concepts we have is that strategy delivery isn't just about projects and programs. Well, we use projects and programs extensively to deliver strategy. We still deliver strategic objectives and performance objectives through product groups, through departments and functions that help the organization move forwards, in addition to the temporary entities which are in fact our projects and programs. And subsequent to that release, we spent 2024 basically blogging and posting and creating supplementary resources. And in 2025, we've been focused more on sharing this content and getting it out there. And at the back end of this year, we're really trying to focus on delivering an event, or either a virtual event that basically covers all aspects of it and enables us to share all this content that we've put together with all of our stakeholders and volunteers, totally free of charge. It's a voluntary exercise. The information shared into the public domain. It's all there to be shared and used by whoever wants to use it. So that's the timescale in a nutshell.
So has anybody got any questions for David before he leaves us?
I think the challenge really, David, is, as you said, I've just sent a link on the chat box. I don't know if people who are recording can pick it up or be added later, is where, on the Praxis website, the link to BIG is there. But it's about how do we get people, see, we are struggling at the moment, although, well, we're not, but I know companies are trying to pick up the Praxis framework to get people to start educating people on Praxis framework. Because people are still stuck to this word called Prince2. They don't know what it means. They don't know how to spell it, but they see that as a qualification. And because of different issues, of course, trying to get people. So we've got a number of people who are doing Praxis. So my thing is, how do we get the uptake and people to recognize what value the data integration data is actually offering to organizations? So what are your thoughts about how do we make it recognizable and people know what we're talking about?
So what we've been doing more recently is rather than trying to explain what BIG is start to talk about the scenarios that BIG solves. Yeah. So we talk about, we did an event with the APM, for example, and talked about difficulties people have in connecting strategy to delivery.
Yeah.
So rather than talk about start to explain what BIG is, we talk about the difficulty in achieving clarity of strategy, the difficulty communicating it, cascading it, defining measures, making decisions around it, prioritizing across business as usual, value creation and change, and engaged in one particular event with about 400 people, and we came up with so many reasons as to need to operate with business integrated governance, as opposed to try and manually integrate governance and do it without any systematic help. So that's the answer. Is what are your pains? If we can spot the pains that you have with respect to strategy delivery and all manner of issues around that, then we can show you what the answer is in terms of integrated governance.
So if I could continue, please, Veronica.
Sure,
so
carry on.
Have you spoken to APMG International and asked them what they think? Because I know they are an accreditation body. And I think anything like this, to people to start recognizing value, if you can put some accreditation behind it, then it starts to get a little bit more recognized. That's my only thing. And certainly APMG International, because APMG International today accredited praxis, they can then start to demonstrate the link, if there is any. You're right. It's, you look at the National Health Service as a whole, we collect so much data and we do nothing with it, unfortunately, or all we do is generate reports. It doesn't lead to good, effective decision making. And if we can see some good examples where we can see effective decision making, then I think, absolutely, it'll have a lot of value.
Well, that's the whole point of the big stuff. It's rather than pile up information that we think we might need as high as a mountain, and then try to use data analytics to magic some meaning out of it. The idea is, with a big approach, is to think about what information you need to make decisions with. What are your points of accountability? What are the points of governance? And then let's think about what we need for decision making. And then let's work out where we need to get that from, and let's make the mechanism for that good. Let's make the process and people side of that work. So let's create the infrastructure that we can manage decision making with, and apply that to the whole process, from our understanding of purpose, the definition of vision, the creation of objectives, the budgeting to different parts of the organization, the delivery of strategy, products, and business as usual performance. Let's integrate it and tie it all up, because it's all connected.
Yeah, and I think going back to it, sorry, my final comment on this, it'd be good to see some exemplars on how you've done it. And once you try to show that to people, then of course, that's what people want to see, is saying, how does it help me? And I think that's the key point, isn't it? How does it support my pains?
Yes,
and I think
exactly.
if you've got some good examples, then certainly that would be great. Yeah, thank you for that. Sorry.
Well, actually, Raj, I do think that lays us nicely, linking your question into Sachin. So Sachin's just asked us about the conference and what the content of that is. So part of that is a little session we're calling the Frankenorg, where we've got quite a few people who've done levels of BIG. So they've done either sort of a bit of BIG, which I know doesn't sound right when it is integrated governance, but they're focused on, let's say, putting in a good data model, or through to sort of more or less full implementations of BIG in an organisation. So as part of the conference, one of the sessions will be the Frankenorg, and what we're going to do is take bits of each of these case studies to show how they were used. Which I think will be quite good for all parties concerned. It's certainly been very interesting putting the material together. Alex, if you want to flip to the last slide, I was going to mention the conference, but we may as well cover it now. the conference, there's a bit here obviously about the BoK Club, and then about extra resources. We've got the big ecosystem, for want of a better word, has grown quite a lot recently. So I think even the membership's probably not very familiar with what we're now offering. It's in there somewhere, Alex, about the conference. So one of these things is the conference, probably that one. Yeah, so it's the 5th of November. It's for a whole day, but it will be recorded. And obviously, if you buy a ticket, you will have access to those recordings. We're going to do a general thing on BIG. We're going to do the Franken.org. We're going to do a readiness assessment. That's really quite interesting as well, to sort of assess how ready or otherwise your organisation is in relation to BIG. We've got some killer speakers. We've got Steve Jenner on benefits. We've got the International Association of Strategy Planners talking to us about strategy and governance. And we've got Tim Leach on risk. Is there anything I've forgotten in that, David, or is there other bits? I think that's the most of it.
Yeah, Tim Leach is on mission critical objectives, and we'll be talking with him about how to connect that with BIG. With Steve Jenner, we're talking about portfolio management and the connection with BIG. I've also just put in the chat a case study we've recently produced about integrated governance for a 30-country international telecoms organization that needed integrated governance to multiply its strategic investment threefold. So that's an example of how integrated governance has helped. But the conference, yeah, lots to it, lots of content, and lots of example and relationship to the source disciplines of portfolio strategy and good governance management.
Yeah, so that's just on the website, Sachin. Sorry, I'm not sure if it's Sachin or Sachin. If you would let us know.
It's got to be Sachin, because it's Sachin Tendulkar. There we go.
Sachin, there we go. Cool.
There we are.
It's just on the website. If you go to the website, we've got conference in very large letters as I think tab 2 now. So that tells you everything you'd like to know about attending. But it is really good value. Basically, we've got a couple of tiers of tickets. For just £20, you can either attend in person and or have access to recordings till January, which is really good. We have something called a full conference ticket, which is basically a full membership for a year. You can attend the conference, you can take your level 1 exam, you get access to full recordings, and you can attend the BoK Club. So that's also an option. Okay. There, let's go from that one. So how to access the BoK. So we've got 2 or 3 different ways actually of accessing the BoK. Like David said, this is absolutely a not-for-profit community interest company. So the idea is definitely to make the materials available. I think there was one ahead of this, which was for full members, Alex. Yeah, so for full members, it's very easy. It's the bigcic.org website, and it's just in the knowledge resources, full member resources, and there's a full PDF right at the top there. So a complete PDF. And then there's 2 other alternative ways of getting at the information, which is on the next slide. So you can just go to the bigcic.org website, go to knowledge, body of knowledge, scroll down the page, and you'll be able to access individual chapters. So you can download each one at a time. You will just need to provide an email address for that. And then alternatively, you can go to the website, go to knowledge outline. You can still download the chapters one at a time, but there's also a little précis of each chapter content on that page. So you can read the précis first just to see what's in the chapter, and then download it as needed. So if we go on one, Alex. So what's in it? So this is basically what the BoK is comprised of. We've got a foreword, we've got 8 meaningful chapters of content, and there's some really good stuff in the appendices about sort of additional information that's grown. But in the BoK Club, we're aiming to cover chapters 1 through 8. So we won't cover the foreword or the appendices this go around, although it is absolutely the intention that this BoK group is sort of demand led. So if anybody particularly wants to cover certainly the extra material, there is definitely value in there. There's loads of helpful subsidiary material though on the website itself. We've got a blog on LinkedIn, we've got loads of articles, and we've got a YouTube channel which I have a bit of a slide on later, but I don't think anybody knows about the YouTube channel, and there is some really, really good stuff on the YouTube. So just to give that a bit of a shout out. All right. Next one, Alex. Okay, so this is a little bit of a sneak peek about what we're actually going to cover. So, Alex, this is where you, I think, come into your own on talking us through the sort of big highlights that we can look forward to.
Okay, so I have been a part of BIG since the beginning. I was part of the core P3M data club that BIG evolved from. And we developed presentations, and we realized that many things could be split into principles, components, methods, models, or key concepts. It's all pretty self-explanatory. You were talking about praxis before. I just want to make it very clear. BIG is agnostic when it comes to project, program, or portfolio management methods. David worked with Adrian Dooley and embedded the PPM side of BIG into praxis, but that does not mean that it's praxis. So I'm an MSP advanced practitioner. I will be managing programs with MSP for most of my clients. I could be managing projects and programs with praxis, but BIG is just looking at the inputs and the outputs. Where's your governance? Where are your accountability nodes? What's the information flow? What do you need on your agendas, etc., etc. We don't care what PPM method you're using. All we care about is the information that comes down to project, program, or portfolio level, and the information that is exported out. Is it pertinent? Are the right people getting the right information? And also, very importantly, making sure that people who don't need or shouldn't see that information don't get it either. And when we talk about technology, BIG works well with the technology solutions that can pull all this information in as a data hub and then just export to the people who need it. So, Veronica, throw me an easy one.
Well, so this is the content of the BoK, really, isn't it? So the principles I think are quite interesting, and how they came to be evolved and get to those principles is really interesting, but we'll cover that at the time. Tell us it.
So
Well, let's not worry
Okay.
about the principles. I really like the components as well, one of which of course is data. There are 8 components. Again, that will be a substantive piece that we'll work through. Alex, do you want to talk a little bit about the components instead then?
Right, the ones I can read. So governance is a core part of BIG. So if you think about, you have a large corporation, you have a departmental breakdown. And that's a very good pain point when you're talking to somebody about implementing BIG. The first thing you say is, can you show me your org chart and how up to date it is? You might be surprised how many very large international organizations I've been to, and their organization charts are woefully out of date. BIG goes one step forward. So it says, we have accountability nodes who are individuals, but they would be the chair of the meeting or the sponsor of the project or the program or the director for a department. And it's understanding the decision making and basically the RACI, the accountability responsibility, between the different accountability nodes for making decisions. Because that's what businesses run on. You have to, or organizations run on, you have to have individuals who make decisions and are accountable for those decisions. So governance is key. And when we spoke about different organizations to date have implemented different parts of BIG, one of the most common parts of the jigsaw that they've implemented or implemented early is about understanding the accountability. So I did some work with an organization, very simple, put in RACI. Who is accountable, who's responsible, who will be consulted? Made a huge difference. Huge cultural pushback. Everybody wanted to take plaudits for the success. Nobody wanted to be responsible in case it went wrong. But it made that organization run much more effectively and efficient. So information, that's a very simple one. We have data. Data leads to information. Are we understanding what information we need? Are we making sure that the right people get the information in a pertinent fashion? And from my experience of going to meetings and being presented with an 80-page slide pack, and it's like, well, the information and the data's in here somewhere, but you have to be Sherlock Holmes to find it. It's saying, what do you need? This is presented to you. If you want other information at a later time, all the information systems are joined up. You can drill down, drill up, go left and right. That's a core concept. We talked about accountability in terms of governance. We've also talked, there's a big push on accountability and fair accountability. You can't make somebody accountable for something if they are not empowered to be able to do that thing. It's unfair. You may have seen it in organizations through office politics. It's not just a poison chalice that somebody's given. It's an impossible task. It's about saying setting people up to fail is not an effective way of running your organization. Sorry, if just stop me at any point. I'm just flying through these at a very high level. Business support is, some people take some time to get their heads around this. In a lot of organizations, we have PMOs. We may have multiple PMOs in each organization. So you might have an enterprise PMO. You might have PMOs for individual projects, programs, and portfolios. The concept of business support is that it is a permanent department that does all the PMO work, supplies the PMO people, and keeps BIG running, because all the key concepts that you would have within a PMO are supported by business integrated governance. So it's wider than a standard PMO. They're not siloed, like you can go to an organization and identify 20 different PMOs very quickly, and they're all siloed. And they have a different language. They use a different data model. They use different terminology. It's core. So if you have core terminology and all of these business support areas, which are not just for project and program management, but will also include pertinent business support for BAU, then you can analyze top down for your enterprise all pertinent data. Whatever you search on, everybody is using the same labels for this data, information, and any other content you've got. That sounds really boring, but it is, from a strategic management point of view, it's massive. And I've worked in companies for over 30 years who've been trying to do this for various levels of success. Some of them have been quite good at doing this on the P3M side, but they've had great difficulty linking it to the BAU, the run the business side. Whereas, as David spoke about earlier, we might be wanting strategic change, we might be wanting strategic outcomes, we might be chasing certain benefits. A lot of the heavy lifting is done through PPM, but a lot of these outcomes and benefits are also being driven from BAU. If you don't have these things linked together, how can the directors at the top actually see what value is being generated and what they've got their strategy is this strategy being accomplished? It might be more than they know, but there's no pertinent way to report on everything. I'm probably waffling a bit, but I'm trying not to. I'm trying to give examples.
Oh,
I think
so
if I could just interrupt a little bit, if it's okay, Veronica. I think it's interesting when you come back to just with our experience. First of all, Alex, I've made a few points. This is just my thought a bit, playing the devil's advocate to you. And I know other people will be listening to this. As you said, I'm also an advanced managing successful practitioner, which we're not advanced anymore because People Cert don't provide that qualification. So, it's there. However, I think people need to understand the Praxis framework. So I still do managing successful programs, Prince2 and Praxis. There is nothing in managing successful programs that isn't built into the Praxis framework. So I think that to me is quite a useful thing for people to understand. So Praxis framework contains everything that's in managing successful programs and what's in Prince2 plus more. So I think, when people are listening, do look at that. I mean, I don't own shares in Praxis, but I think it's a fantastic product for managing corporate portfolio programs and projects. So, and I think absolutely, Alex, when you're using it, I just say to people, one of the key roles, and it's interesting when you talk about multiple corporate portfolio management offices or PMOs, my thing is there should only be one, whether you call it enterprise or corporate, because that needs to, first of all, define the approach. So my logic to people all the time that I work with, Alex, across UK and here, is you never use something called Praxis. You must use the corporate approach to managing your portfolio. You have to tailor it to your organization needs. This is only a framework. Even Praxis needs to be tailored. So which is great that you're mentioning it in here. Second point that you've made, which is excellent, is we need to agree a local terminology. What do we call it? Well, you may call it as I had a long conversation with somebody on LinkedIn, and he said, Raj, this is what we should call these steps of the life cycle. Like you've got in here, engagement, going, business case. My thing is, these are only terminologies. You have to make sure it's agreed internally within an organization. Whether you call it discovery, whether you call it identification, whether you call it feasibility, these are all international terms. You have to make sure it's local and it's translatable, because there's no point having a word that you can't translate to Japanese. If your colleagues are there.
I get all that. So you know, the Praxis stuff, I was just trying to make it clear to people that you do not have to use Praxis.
No, not at all.
You use whatever methods are usually used in your organization, or whatever methods you feel fit. And it's the same on the technology side. This is BIG leverages modern corporate technology.
Yeah.
But it's technology agnostic. We don't care if you're using SharePoint, Amazon, Oracle, SAP, whatever. It is technology agnostic.
And that's how it should be. And hence my thing, you create that corporate approach, and that's what you use. Absolutely correct. The other one is quite interesting, this term called accountable and responsible. And it's filled in here. You've got accountability node. But, I think there was a government paper that was published a long time ago. You can imagine it's a Scott report as a result of arms to Iraq. And the two words were compared, the difference between the word responsible and the word accountable. I'm just saying, there are people who might read it. So for me, the word responsible sits above the word accountable based on the government paper. So that is the UK government publication, and hence, the UK government called them a senior responsible owner and not a senior accountable owner. Look at managing successful program refers to as a senior responsible owner. So I think the report, when you read it and when you go into the constitution of ours, That's where we are. But you're right. If you look at MSP question, it says who's accountable. So I think there's a challenge. But again, it's up to each organization to decide what terminology which we're going to use, which you've already identified in your conversations. So I think it's a node. You call it a responsibility node, or you call it an accountability node.
It's very much based on whatever the ISO is for good governance, which also links to RACI. So in RACI, the accountable is higher than responsible. If I'm the captain of the ship, I'm accountable. The engine's going wrong. The chief engineer is responsible. So
if I go back to an example, no, it is. If I go back to the example, when Theresa May was a Home Secretary, and there were all the issues with the passport control, visa, customs, etc. When she went to Parliament, she said, "I am accountable," i.e., somebody who is accountable. I am reporting to Parliament. I am not responsible. So I do not make decisions about how the passport office or the passport controls, it was passport control, actually works. The chief executive is responsible for creating policies and procedures. And as a result, she did not resign because she said she was accountable to Parliament, but she was not responsible for the running of the passport office. So I'm just talking about how the UK government has worked. But remember, all I'm trying to say is how people may look at it, and that's all. No, nobody else may say anything, but you're right. If the ISO standard is saying something different, it doesn't align it with the UK government. That's all.
Well, I've worked extensively in UK government as well, and as a rule, we use RACI with the idea that being accountable is the captain of the ship. So if you want more in-depth details on that, I'm not a good governance specialist. I'm just giving an overview for the BoK Club.
Yeah.
There's probably more in the BoK, but certainly talk to David. So
no, I will raise that. Yeah. No, thank you. So they were just the comments on just what I'm trying to also do, Veronica, apologies, is to have a conversation so people don't see just 3 people sitting here with 2 people talking and everybody watching these videos. So at least we're having some discussion.
I greatly welcome it, Raj. Believe me, the intention for the BoK Club go forward is that these are exactly the sort of deep dive conversations we get into, not a chalk and talk. The idea is that we would read the material and delve a little deeper into it in exactly this way. Personally, I find responsible versus accountable causes mammoth confusion in every organisation I've ever worked in, and is an evergreen source of heated debate all over. But we will definitely get into whether it's we call it fair accountability, but whether it's fair accountability or fair responsibility in the local parlance of the organisation. This whole thing about it being fair versus unfair is definitely a topic we will deeper dive as we progress through the chapters of BIG, because that is utterly central to BIG as a concept.
Yeah.
And David, when you're editing and splicing together this video for YouTube, you can correct all of my mistakes. So.
Indeed. Okay.
So. Assurance is important. We believe that insurance should be everywhere. You can't just believe things, you need to check. So that's the common concept of assurance. Leadership is key. Leadership is key for implementing BIG, but leadership is also key, is a continual thing. Implementing BIG, you might think, is a one-off activity, but it's not. You have to have continued leadership to make sure that the framework is in place, is being used, is being exploited, and you are getting the best out of it. So it's not one and done. It becomes an operational role that the BIG framework needs to be monitored and evolved and supported. Otherwise, it would just become an implementation that's in name only, and everybody goes back to the way they were doing stuff before. I believe that says data. Does that say data, Veronica?
Yeah.
Going to block size?
One of them definitely should say data, yeah.
Yeah.
Just data, real evidence, single version of the truth. We operate on data, not guesstimates. Again, where I have done big like implementations or part implementations into organizations, they were very keen on this. They wanted an ERP system, they wanted Hyperion, they wanted Cognos. They just basically wanted the truth. They wanted a single version of the truth. They wanted to be able to drill down to previous versions of the data. They wanted all the data joined up, and they wanted this data to be instantly accessible and as pertinently provided to them as possible. So if you've got a query, you're getting a balanced answer immediately. You're not getting one piece of data which might be giving you a false impression. And if we think about ERP systems, which have been a huge part of my career for the last 25 years, that's one of the main drivers behind ERP systems. It's not some weird concept. It's pretty mainstream. But the concept is, unless you have the right data, so that we can go off and hang people, but we want data so that at every level you can make the best possible decision. And then organization is just making sure that your organization is organized. And I have a client who actually had a program called Get Organized to say, are we organized? Are we clear about what our purpose is, what our approach to going about what we do, and do we have clear accountability? Do we have a clear breakdown and structure in our organization that is most effective for what we want to do? And that was very challenging at the analysis and understanding and consensus level. But once everybody agreed on the outcomes they wanted, and then we modeled different organization structures, then they came up with an organization that was not very far away from where they'd started, but made their organization significantly more effective. And when I'm talking about more effective, in the strategy to delivery sense, the individual departments didn't really change them down at the coalface. They still did the same work, but it was how they structured their decision making and their feedback and their groupings of departments. Have I covered everything on components, Veronica?
I think that will more than do for now. Yep. Thank you, Alex.
I think just one point to add, Alex, when you talk about leadership, absolutely right. It needs to be all the way through. But also for me, the point we need to add is leadership is at all levels.
Oh, yeah,
it's
yeah,
not
yeah.
Leadership
Sorry.
at the senior levels, and hence we talk about senior leaders. So we expect leadership to be demonstrated at a P3 manager level, team leader level. And I think that is why it's understanding how we get, good leaders, really, and all the way through.
Raj, this is, I believe, David can correct me or edit this bit out and re-record something. It's about leadership for the big framework.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Senior leaders. Yeah. Making
So
sure it is actually
to implement business integrated governance and to make it work.
Yeah.
It's not a one and done implementation. It becomes a BAU operation. Yeah. Hence, business support will do a lot about it, but you need leadership, constant, ongoing leadership, to make sure that business integrated governance works for you.
No, that makes good sense, and I think you're right. Any organization where I work with, when you work with the senior leaders, including the chief executive and the managing directors, those organizations are going to make a difference. If you don't have them involved, everything we're doing has been currently, a waste of oxygen, because it's not going to work. So yeah,
Okay.
that's the point then. Yeah, absolutely makes more sense.
Yes, why BoK Club? This was just some little thoughts about why we were bothering to put a BoK Club together. So we wanted to be a friendly and accessible space to learn more about the detail of BIG and to do those deeper dives. We were thinking about people who wanted to take any of the big exams, but especially just the level 1. I do think the BoK can be a little bit off-putting to people who don't enjoy taking in large swathes of information in that format. So we're going to break it down and debate it. I think the understanding that the debates will lead to will really help, especially if you're aspiring to the level 3. We want to talk about real world BIG usage and experiences. As you said, Raj, the use cases are invaluable. How are we actually doing this in anger, not just on paper? We are actually thinking about BoK version 3. Not quite there to start that process yet, but it definitely will not hurt to gather thoughts and feedback as we sort of lead into version 3 and just have fun learning together. But those were my thoughts. I was just going to ask, is there anything anybody else sort of wants out of the BoK Club, or any thoughts about the BoK Club over and above that?
No, we've set up a community of practice for Praxis, and I think those kind of points are, you know, are really what we're trying to aim to get. I think the last one is extremely important, but I think also the one about, you know, I mean, we don't focus on the exam, obviously, but I think it's the one about the real world, which is very important, and actually to share the concepts of, you know, we talked about pains. What are the pains that organizations are having, and how can the support from BIG and support from fellow colleagues actually help us, you know, overcome those challenges that we have. So I think that would be a useful thing for people to take away, really.
Yeah, communities of peer support on pain points. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Thank you.
One of the things when we talked about the BoK Club was because some people who were doing the level 3 professional exam, I think, found the manual daunting just to go into it. Some people just don't like absorbing a manual. I'm one of them.
Yeah,
and this was
non-visual learners.
Yeah, and it's I learn better through discussion. So one of the things about the BoK Club is, especially for people who want to do the level 3 exam, it's an easy way to understand. You don't have to do the BoK Club. As we've pointed out before, there's oodles of easily digestible material on YouTube and the précis on the website, etc., etc. But some people really like this approach. These are being recorded. They will be on YouTube. So even though people can't attend live or for whatever reason, they might not be on YouTube. You might have to pay to access them. You'd have to talk to David about that. I can't remember what the model is at the moment. But even if they don't attend the BoK Club live, the fact that they can watch the recordings will hopefully help them understand business integrated governance and understand why they would implement business integrated governance, and more importantly, how they would implement business integrated governance. Does that make sense?
Yep.
It does, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, back to you, Veronica.
That's all right. Next slide, please. Okay, so a few sort of boring admin points. So just this is the schedule, and obviously, hopefully the reading schedule so that everybody can do their homework. So the next one's in November, and we are just going to do chapter 1. We're not going to have a meeting in December, but then you can see they go through fairly regularly as we cover chapters 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. The time will always be 7:30 to 9 p.m. GMT. So if we're on British Summer Time, it'll be at British Summer Time 7:30. I hope that makes sense to people.
Right, so it's 7:30 to 9 UK time. So summertime at the moment, And yeah, next month we'll be back to GMT, won't it?
Yeah, exactly. So that's just so everybody knows what their homework is for each session. But if you go on one, Alex. Yeah, so BOK Club rules. We don't have any rules. But just as we said, it will be recorded. Sessions are free to full members, and that includes conference full members, but it's £3 a month. Otherwise, you can sign up to register under the book club offering, or look for book club membership under the membership tab on the website. CPD certificates will be available for those who need them. Just email us and let us know you want one. That's fine. But the main point I wanted to make was come if you have not done the reading. So I fully expect that actually most busy professionals will fully intend to read their chapter and will either start and run out of time or just not get round to it. So although, as I say, we're hoping not to do death by PowerPoint on a routine basis, I think we will try and do some kind of précis, or at least hit up the high points of the content. So the hope is that it will be well worth coming, even if you haven't had the time to do the reading. So don't let that be a barrier. I'm in about 5 other book groups of various kinds, and people are always hesitant if they haven't done the reading, but just come along, you'll learn something useful. That said, obviously you will always get the most out of it if you have done the reading, but don't let that stop you.
For people who learn like me, who aren't good at going into a big fat manual, which I have a copy of in front of me, just go onto the website and for each chapter read the précis. That's a fantastic start. That's how it works for me. I know everybody else learns differently.
Can I then suggest, and please, Veronica, when the invite goes out for the chapter, we send out the précis as to what that chapter is about. Even if people haven't read it, then it becomes part of the email, because you're going through that email anyway. And then at least people know what that is. And if they've got any pain points at work, then they can start thinking about it.
That is a great idea, and we shall do that. Thank you. Yes, absolutely.
Okay, in terms of the time, the reason we've given it an hour and a half is so that we have contingency for discussion. Probably less pertinent for today, because this is just the #1 intro, basically telling you about the book club, as opposed to getting stuck into a chapter. But we may not need an hour and a half, but we want to have the contingency if people want to be online and do the discussions. The other thing I'd say is, why are we charging a fee? We're not for profit. We don't take any money out, but the CIC, the not-for-profit organization, does have small expenses. We need to run a website. We need to go to conferences and present and this, that, and the other. So we have small expenses, and that's why there's a small charge for the BOK club. I'm raising it in case anybody's wondering.
Yeah, hopefully we have set that at a very affordable, accessible level, though. I mean, obviously,
Yes.
We're more than happy to take feedback on all aspects of BOK Club, really, or anything else to do with BIG, aren't we, Alex?
Yep. If you don't tell us, we don't know, and we can't reflect and adjust.
Indeed, and we are very much reflective learners, aren't we? That we do agree on. Reflection is important.
Okay, so next slide, is it?
Please. Yeah.
Oopsie-daisy. I'm sorry, PowerPoint does not like working with Teams.
Yeah, sorry, it's a bit clunky tonight. It's my fault because my setup was there you go. We're on the conference slide, which I think we've already covered. Go bigger. Oh yeah, membership. So I just wanted to highlight we've actually done quite a lot of work on refining the membership offerings. This BoK Club is part of trying to give more ongoing value to members. So like I said before, full members can now attend the conference, the BoK Club, any and all other events we have, access all the resources and take the level 1 for a full year. Details at bigcic.org/membership. That's it really, but we're trying to make that more valuable to people. And again, any feedback on the membership offering, we are very open and receptive to. Obviously, we want to provide things that people do want.
Okay. And it's the
YouTube channel.
YouTube channel. Yay.
There's some brilliant stuff on our YouTube channel. There really is some good stuff. I think that first one I put up there was an introduction. So business integrated governance and introduction. There is loads of stuff on here though. And like I said, I'm pretty sure people don't actually know we've got it. But that's the little icon. Go and search up BIG CIC on YouTube. You will find us, although you might have to put BIG-CIC. Some other stuff will come up. And give us a subscribe. There is myself and Alex talking about the exams. There's loads of extracts from conference presentations that have been done. There is some really good stuff. And as we progress, I might hit up a couple of the videos as a sort of additional homework for people if they want to round out their reading. Some good stuff. So just to let everybody know that that does exist. And of course, that is completely free.
Yep.
Okay, moving on. So we've done the conference. So I think you can go to the last slide, Alex. There you go. So next time on BoK Club, it's on November 3rd, which is actually just a couple of days before the conference. We're covering chapter 1. So, and the schedule obviously is in the PowerPoints earlier, the full schedule. So we're missing December and then we're back into it straight away, January 5th for chapter 2. So that's all I prepared. Has anybody got any other questions or anything they'd like to know?
No, I think it makes sense. Going back to the membership, but going back to the examination, there's a level 1, level 2, level 3. Who actually recognizes that exam and how, what is the purpose of somebody actually taking that examination?
Shall I cover this one?
By all means, Alex, please do. Yeah.
We are not accredited yet through any examination board. Part of that is cost. Okay, but we're not here saying we're a professional organization that's going to make a fortune, even though we say we're not for profit, PMI. But what we are saying is, here's some exams. The level 1 exam is a super simple multiple choice, and anybody who's worked in management in enterprise organizations should be able to pass it with very little understanding of business integrated governance. Now, I think at the moment it's called an associate's exam, and part of it is educational. Through the questions, you sort of learn about BIG. It's multiple choice based on the body of knowledge, but so common sense, it's unbelievable. We do not currently have a level 2 exam because we haven't had the demand, and building these exams is an enormous amount of effort, and we've wanted to prioritize our effort elsewhere for now. The level 3 exam is different. So the level 3 exam is the candidate presents, and I think it's only for 20 minutes, on where they have implemented BIG or parts of BIG, or, well, chicken and egg, a lot of people haven't implemented BIG or parts of BIG yet, how they would implement parts of BIG. So you can do it on a hypothetical organization, you can do it on a real organization where you think, this is why I would implement BIG in this organization, these are the pain points, this is what would change. Or, it can be a completely made up organization and a made up series of pain points and a made up concepts of what you're getting out of it and what the value is for doing the work. That is assessed by, I think it's usually 3 people who are usually big founders or big directors, the people who wrote the material, and it's whether the candidate is credible to us as somebody who's got their head around the key concepts of BIG and is credible to us as somebody who could implement BIG into an organization themselves. It doesn't have to be all of the BIG framework, but the vast majority of it. I have never implemented all of business integrated governance into an organization, but in different organizations, I have implemented different parts of the jigsaw. It was what was the priority at the time, what the business was going to be most accepting of. Sometimes you have to do little bits and build credibility before they let you do anything bigger. But that's what the level 3 is about. We're very friendly, but we know our onions. We've all been round the block.
Yeah. As I say, we've actually got a blog article about the exams, and there is on the YouTube, one of the recent uploads is myself and Alex talking about it for about an hour, I think, which is probably more than anybody would ever want to know about the big exams. But you can go and look that up, and obviously we're more than happy to answer any other questions about that as well, of course. The level 3 we piloted earlier this year, so BIG itself is evolving. That's why, like I said, we're trying to improve our own ecosystem and our offering, and we're building out all these things as we go.